My parents were Joe and Mary Sue Carney Jones. I have one brother and one sister. Well, my father worked for the highway department. When I was a small child, we lived with my grandparents while my father was in the Navy. And we came to town on Saturday, usually, and we lived at Hogeye. My grandmother told me a lot about Prairie Grove back when she was a girl. It was mostly about the park. Her dad was Robert Owen Hanna. He was in the Civil War in Tennessee, and he came to Prairie Grove in 1867. And they lived south of Prairie Grove. And she told me about the Confederate reunions they had. He was in the Confederate Army, and they would come up here and have a reunion. They came in wagons. They slept in wagons, but he and his wife had a house here in town. So I don't know if they ever stayed in a wagon or not, but it was like a carnival. Well, we came to town usually on Saturday, and we would buy groceries and go home, but I always looked forward to coming to town. It was a fun day. And later on, in later years, I came to town on Trades Day that they had in Prairie Grove. I always enjoyed that.
Tell me more about Trades Day.
Well, you had tickets. You put in a box, and they would draw out the tickets to see who won. And I think, if I remember right, the prize was $50 for the first prize, and then so much for the next few. I started school in Prairie Grove in the 8th grade. I graduated from Prairie Grove High School. I was a cheerleader in school, and I enjoyed Prairie Grove. I was in the band. Clyde Delap was a band leader, band director. And
what did you do after you got out of high school?
I went to work for the FBI in Washington, D.C. I stayed 1 year. I came back to Prairie Grove, and Delford Reef offered me a job in the bank. So I took the job, and I was just planning on staying a year or so, and I ended up staying 50 years and retired from there. In the beginning, it was you did everything by hand. No computers, no nothing. Adding machines was about all. When it ended up, everything was all computers. But I know when we first went to computers, we were all scared we wouldn't be able to work using the computers. Well, we came to the Crescent. We went to the Southern Mercantile and the dime store on Main Street. And the dime store was up 2 buildings from the bank. And I just remember going in there a lot. Well, we were out in the country, so I didn't have too many friends that lived out there. There was a boy that lived up the street from us, or up the road, and he would come down and we'd climb trees. And he always helped me climb trees. On Sunday afternoons at my grandparents', after lunch, we would all go to my grandparents' for lunch. and the men would play cards. And I would go watch them play cards. They played pitch. Well, we would watch the men play cards or go outside and play. First Baptist Church.
Tell me about what that was like when you were a kid going there.
Well, it was the old church. It was a white building, had a stove in the back where it was heated, where it heated the room. There was a bell tower. Our Sunday school classes were upstairs by the bell tower. Florine Cornwell was my first Sunday school teacher up there. Her husband was Ray Cornwell, who was principal or superintendent of the Prairie Grove schools. We would have reunions. My grandmother's family would have reunions. And we would go to the park. And I guess that's where she told me a lot about the park. We would go down to, she was a relation to the Morrows that had the Morrow house. And she would tell me about going to their house. And the kids would spend the night on pallets around the fireplace down there. I remember the tanks being here, and not much of anything else was here. I remember when they moved in this building, when they moved in the Morrow house, and we would always go up and look in the Morrow house and the ladder barn. Well, I was in the Junior Civic League. I was a charter member of the Junior Civic League, and we had our meetings in Heineman Hall, right after Heineman Hall was erected here. Then later on, the Junior Bank Board, I was a sponsor of the Junior Bank Board at the bank, and we would, on Memorial Day, we would have a hot dog stand and sell hot dogs and drinks to the customers to the people that came to the Memorial Day events. And we always had some kind of a speaker at the Memorial Day events. I remember the railroad tracks being down south of town. They crossed the street close to the mill, and my grandmother told me that they went to the World's Fair in 1904 in St. Louis, and they got on the train down at the depot south of town. And I don't know when the depot was demolished or what. Of course, it wasn't there when we came to town. But I do remember the railroad tracks before they took those out. It was a very small town, but the people were really nice people. And they worked together to make the town better.